Hello and welcome. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending on which time zone you are in. We're excited to have you here today. We'll be talking about BIM 360 design for Civil 3D. So those of you that didn't know, design is now available for Civil 3D. Yay, I'm so excited. Sean Hulbert is here to talk to you a bit about that. So Sean, you want to say hi to everyone?
Good day, everyone, wherever you're joining us from. We appreciate you taking the time out and joining this presentation. Welcome.
Yes, welcome. We do still see attendees are starting to join, so I'm going to have Sean hold off just a couple more minutes, let people finish getting logged into the system. And while we're waiting on that, maybe I'll launch a quick little poll just to find out. Actually, you know what, let's not do a poll. Let's do this. Let's have you type in the question panel where you are joining us from today. So in the questions panel in your GoToWebinar interface, go ahead and go into the questions and type in where you're joining from. So I don't see anyone typing yet. Oh, all right. So Brian says he is from, whoops, I've lost that. Let's see, let's pull that pane out so I can see it better. It kind of stacks on. There we go. All right, so Steve is coming in. Stephen from Kansas City, Missouri. Awesome. Brian from Arizona. Kenneth, you're coming in from Florida. Welcome. Michelle from Hunt Valley. Great. And John is coming in from, ooh, I might mispronounce this, Kelowna from British Columbia. Joe is coming in from Tempe, Arizona. Let's see. Nicholas is coming in from Quebec. Wonderful. Darren, Port of Dover in the United Kingdom. Excellent. So glad you stayed on late to join us. I guess it's not too late yet. Excellent. Larry from Wisconsin. Cole from Midland, Texas. Jamie from Ireland. Excellent. John from Las Vegas. Excellent. So thank you everyone for joining and participating in that quick little poll. I see our numbers are still climbing. We'll maybe give everyone just one more minute. So, you know, definitely keep telling me where you're coming in from. Nathan from Nashville, Tennessee. Excellent. Welcome. I might mispronounce this as well. Besim from Albania. Excellent. And Zara from, oh, it moved lines on me. There we are. From Regina. Thank you. All right, we've got Ottawa, Canada on here. Another, oh, Israel. Excellent. Excellent. All right. Well, I think our numbers are starting to steady off. Sean, why don't you go ahead and get started? And by the time you get through the introduction stuff, I think we'll have everyone online.
Perfect. Thank you, Michelle. It looks like we're covering everybody that's in a waking hours right now. That's pretty awesome. I love the global attendee list here. So again, my name is Sean Hulbert. I am a designated support specialist here at Autodesk. I'm actually changing my roles here at Autodesk. I have accepted the opportunity to become an implementation specialist, which means I'm working with our global consulting delivery group here in the near future. And Michelle is our AEC content manager. So we do want to point out our Autodesk virtual meetup site, but on this site, we also want you to know that there are, in addition to the virtual meetups, we also have our connected learning content out here on those sites as well. And so I've actually got a little bit of a hiccup on my URL there at the top of the page. That's what brought me to connected learning. But what you're seeing on my slide here is the actual information for the meetup content. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, like Michelle said, we're going to introduce you to the BIM 360 environment for Civil 3D, specifically around the design environment, so we can leverage the collaboration tools that are available. Pardon me, I had a pop-up. Let me go ahead and move that away. The other thing we're going to talk about is, okay, I've already got my project set up here locally or on a server, a localized server, or in some other file sharing format. How can I move that information over to the BIM 360 environment? And we'll also understand what the role of the desktop connector is. And then we'll show you how to get users connected to your project. So we're actually going to go through the process of setting up a BIM 360 environment for you, or a BIM 360 project for you to see, and then walk you through the processes of actually inviting people to the project. One second here, I'm trying to ask a quick question to Michelle. There we go. Communicating behind the scenes and I got caught. So we do want to talk about our safe harbor statement. In general, today we're not going to talk about anything that would be covered or needed to be covered by the safe harbor statement. But if I do make a mistake and I start talking about something that's coming soon to a Civil 3D near you or to a BIM 360 near you, then I want to make sure that I can go ahead and point back to the safe harbor statement. We don't want you to make any purchasing decisions on or related to content and software that's not yet available. And so I think we're going to go ahead and pop up a quick poll, Michelle.
Yep. So let's see if that launched. Did that launch okay?
Yes, it looks like it did.
Perfect.
So what we're asking here is, what collaboration tools are you currently using on projects? And we understand that maybe if you're selecting BIM 360, that you're using BIM 360 for the Revit tools. If you're actually using BIM 360 already with the civil collaboration tools, would you please go ahead and throw a shout out either in the chat or in the questions panel and indicate that you've already started leveraging this. So we see a lot of Dropbox and a lot of OneDrive. And that's kind of what I would expect to see primarily here. And so we know that there's a number of challenges leveraging both of those sets of tools with the BIM 360 with the Civil 3D data sets, specifically around data shortcuts, the ability to lock files and the ability to leverage the history that should be going along with those edits that you're making to those files. So those are some of the things that we're going to take a look at here today. Excellent. Looks like Stacy and Jen are both leveraging it in a pilot environment. Wonderful. And that would be one of the recommendations I would make, is that you start slow with it. We don't want to jump in and move everything to the BIM 360 world. We want you to understand where the immediate successes are, and maybe where some of your challenges would occur that we've already got workarounds for you, or some workflows to help you with any of those potential challenges. So that's great. Stephen and Michelle also working in pilot environments, so that is really good to hear. Moving right along here. Oh, wait, let me go ahead and have Michelle post that results of the poll, if you would, please. There we go. So it looks like Dropbox is heavily there, leveraged in the environment. We've got a little bit of BIM 360 and a little bit of OneDrive also showing up. To be honest, I expected to see more project-wise, so that's very interesting. I know a lot of our customers are leveraging. Oh, and Daniel points out none of the above was not an option, so that's a great great share, Daniel. I appreciate that. I was thinking that maybe we should have included a none of the above or an other, and that way none of the above could be included there as well. So thank you, I appreciate that. So let's understand what's required to leverage BIM 360 in our environment. So, and what does BIM 360 give us the ability to do? Well, think about it very similar to a file sharing environment that is in the cloud, something similar to Google Drive. That would have been another one that we could have thrown up there on the list. And how that functionality gives you the ability to share specific areas to specific folder structures within that environment. And so that's really how we want to start thinking about managing the moving of data to the cloud. The ultimate goal here is to make data be the center of your project, and for you to pull and consume the information that you need. As a civil designer, we couldn't care less about the FF&Es inside a Revit building. We really need to know about the connection points, both in and out, ingress and egress, as well as where any of our connection points are going to be. So we can definitely start to simplify the information that we're pulling. So as we work towards that ultimate goal, as data being in the center, we are starting to open up the door and give you these opportunities to start working with the tools that are migrating you towards that environment. one of the things that you'll hear us say a lot at Autodesk is that we can't boil the ocean. You can't have an all functioning tool on day one for everybody the very first release. That's just not a realistic expectation for software, because you would never release the software. Things change, things continually change, and that's where products that are hosted in the cloud give us a lot more functionality and a lot more ability to make those changes and be more dynamic. So what you're going to see here, one of the important things is that we've enabled the ability to share your data shortcuts and your data shortcuts and data references, as well as X references in the BIM 360 environment, and then enabled the ability to lock those Civil 3D drawings. But one of the things that I like to point out is that once you've put your drawings over there in the Civil 3D, in the BIM 360 environment, you now have the ability to leverage the tools that are in BIM 360 beyond just sharing of data with your team or your workforce. You now have the ability to leverage the tool to allow project reviewers to start making comments on live files. No need to make those PDFs for the reviewer to be able to make comments. They can actually look at your drawings in the BIM 360 environment and start making some recommendations or suggestions to documents as the designers are actually working on them in the live environment. And that it's a really powerful step. It takes us out of a relay environment, because that's a lot of what we see in the civil design process, is that we kind of function in that relay race environment. The surveyor hands off the topo. The topo is then handed off to the designer, who starts designing. The designers then hand off the information so that the drafters can start preparing the sheets and the construction documentation. What if everybody started the project at the beginning and started thinking about some of the design criteria all at the beginning, all at the same time, and then as design criteria was completed, or as data was added to our projects, that information was migrated and imported automatically? That's really what we're headed towards. Take the monotony out of the product. So what do you need? Well, you have to have the BIM 360 design entitlement in your BIM 360 account. You also have to have Civil 3D 2020.2 or newer, as well as the Autodesk Desktop connector. And then you'll receive an invitation to Collaboration for Civil project. Go accept that invitation, and then you'll start to see that data show up in your Civil 3D environment. And we'll take a look at that live here in just a few moments. The other thing I will recommend is that you do need a robust internet connection, specifically if you're trying to manage large data sets up there. Sounds like Mohammed cannot hear. Did you see that, Michelle? Does
Yes,
anybody
I
else
am
have any
working on
problems
that.
hearing?
Yeah, I'm working on that. Let me see what I can do for him.
Thank you. And so what I'll say is that there are some abilities for you to work offline. So what I would recommend is, if you're going to be in an environment where you're working on Wi-Fi, it would be best to leverage some of those other workflows. And we can talk about that a little bit later. So again, just a reminder, this is what the information looks like, the end user requirements for Collaboration for Civil 3D, or you might hear some people refer to it as C4C3D, a little bit of Star Wars humor there, or kind of creeping in that environment to show you how geeky we really are. The requirements for setting up the project in BIM 360 design. So that's really where we need to start, is that we actually have to get our project set up in BIM 360 if we wish to collaborate. So one of the things that we have the ability to do is we'll actually step through this process real quick. We'll jump over into the BIM 360 design environment, and we'll start creating our project, or the BIM 360 environment, and we'll start creating our project. And then we will enable the design functionality inside that project. I really want to make sure I say that the right way, because you could create a project and not enable design. You might wonder where the project's at in your Civil 3D environment. So we'll just be cautious of that right now. Looks like we've got another question. Jordan, I'd love to take this one offline. What Jordan's saying is, currently we have drawings that are uploaded into the BIM 360 design environment. Layering is not saved in the drawing as it's not maintained. So the frozen layers are still visible when they upload the plans. Is this being worked on? We'll definitely look into that. If you have not yet created a case with the Autodesk accounts, please do so. We definitely want to make sure that we're getting those issues taken care of as they are happening, if we can. So here's what the a quick screenshot of your BIM 360 environment will look like. Once you've got the case or the project created, you see here that now you have the ability to invite additional users to that environment and then assign them different access to the individual modules inside that environment. So the roles of the administrator basically, you're going to assign the project permissions to your project team. For example, you may only want your civil team to have read-only access in your architectural folders, as well as your architects to only have read-only access in your civil folders. So know that you have a number of different ways to assign project and folder permissions inside the BIM 360 environment. You can do that based on a role. So you can have landscape architects have access to a specific set of data in your BIM 360 environment, or you can set those permissions based on a company. So for example, maybe you only want the contractor to see specific folders and files inside the BIM 360 environment, but your sub-consultants need to have a little bit further or a little bit additional access. So migrating an existing project. So one of the things that we're going to have is that we have some projects we've already started. We've decided that those are good projects for a pilot, maybe, to move over into the BIM 360 environment. So how are we going to take care of that? Well, again, one of the things that we want to do is make sure that we have everything together in a good folder structure and good data management. And I know that we're all leveraging good data management and good folder structures when we're working on our projects, so that shouldn't be a problem. The other thing that I like to recommend that I don't have here on my slide is that we clean up our data. And when I say when we clean up our data, the first thing you're going to say is, okay, we purge and audit our drawings all the time. Great. That's wonderful. The other thing that I've seen recently, some things that have presented some challenges in these data collaboration environments are unnecessary references, both external references and data references. So any information that's not needed or was created temporarily, let's say we created some temporary data shortcuts for surfaces, we don't need them anymore. Let's go ahead and remove those, because the last thing we want to do is be moving data across, an internet bandwidth, and it's be unnecessary data that we're moving. So right here it does say detach or repair any unresolved or missing X references. Let's go ahead and anything that we're not using, let's remove them. Anything that we're not leveraging today, let's go ahead and get rid of. We can always bring it back if we find that we need it. We're not going to get rid of the files, we're just going to get rid of those connections. And then I always recommend leveraging the overlay options when you're using external references. The other thing that I'll recommend is that if you're using data references for shortcuts, there's two options inside those. There's two options in there for us to either use geometry or just the graphics of those options. If we use the graphics, we're going to get smaller files. We're going to get a little bit more manageable data. If those surfaces update, it's going to take a little longer for those files to load. But I find that we work in the files enough that the last thing we need to do is start bloating the drawings. If things update, I think we can wait just a little on that end of the spectrum rather than having the bloat where we have to wait all the time.
So we do have a question from Daniel. He says, why doesn't Autodesk do this for us? This seems like easy fruit to pick from the tree to make an awesome experience rather than a sucky one that this provides.
I guess I'm not understanding exactly what you're saying. What should we do for you,
open
Daniel?
Up his line? Yeah, let
Sure.
me open up Daniel's line and see if he can expand on the question. So Daniel, I am going, and I see you're in here twice, so I'm going to unmute the line that is your telephone. So Daniel, your telephone is unmuted. Can you speak with us?
Yeah, like you're asking us to verify all external references are attached to this relative path. I mean, that seems something that you guys could go through all our drawings and say, hey, this isn't a relative path. Do you want to set it as that? Repair detached. Hey, we found this XREF that needs to be repaired. Would you like to do it? And then change the attachment types of all files to overlay. I mean, that seems like super easy to do programmatically. And why aren't you guys doing that for us? Why are you having us go and check this when you could do that yourself?
Well, I would say that one thing is that we do have some tools to help us manage this external to the project. So we definitely have the ability to modify those references and modify the the way that we're working with data outside the project. So we have some of those tools available to you, but I would think that as a designer previously in my past life, I would not want a software company to assume what I did and did not want or how I wanted those files to work. Because as soon as I say that you shouldn't do something, there's going to be 50 people on a call that say, hey, we have to do it that way. What are the impacts, or what are the repercussions? For example, there's another question here about the difference between overlay and attach. Overlay, for those who don't know, allows the X-reference to go one level deep. So if you were to overlay an X-reference into a drawing and then X-reference that drawing into a new drawing, that overlay would not go with it. So you're prevented from having nested X-references. And nested X-references can cause all kinds of challenges around the layer management formats, around missing X-references. So there's a lot, but there's also, just as soon as I say don't use attachment, there's going to be reasons to use it, and we need to leverage that. So I think that might answer your question, Daniel. I mean, there's a lot of liability for us to clean up your drawings for you, because there may be things in there that you don't want us to. It's a recommendation.
But you just told me that I had to do this.
It's a best practice, a recommendation. And as soon as, like I say, I understand that there's reasons that sometimes we can't do these things. And I would hesitate to say that you probably would not like us changing things without your control over them. Now, one thing that I think that you have a very relevant request here would be, allow me to have tools inside BIM 360 that when I migrate my project in, it goes through these steps for me. But as an end user, I want the ability to control how and what it does. I do want it to purge all registered applications, but I don't want it to purge everything, because maybe my template's included in that, and the last thing I want to do is purge everything out of my template. Probably not the best example, but I think that you have a valid point. I think that if we're asking you to do this, it behooves Autodesk to make this process easier.
Well, and one thing I'll point out here too is, BIM 360 is a tool to help you collaborate across teams and across different firms. So let's say I'm the civil engineer and I've got the architect that is also using BIM 360. Maybe his file structure is a lot different than mine. Maybe he puts an additional layer into the file structure that I don't. Maybe he adds, civil engineering content and then all of my content under that. Well, on my side, I might just keep everything relative, but on his side, he may need to have it be absolute paths. So that's one case where, we really need to let you have that control. Does that answer your question, Daniel? Does that help a little?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, awesome. All right, I'm going to go ahead and put you back on mute so we have a clean recording. Thank you for being willing to speak with us.
Okay, moving right along. Thank you, Daniel. I really appreciate the interaction. And so one of the other things that we'll need the desktop connector. Today, the desktop connector is what's being leveraged to move that information from your desktop to the BIM 360 environment. A little quick just slide here on what the desktop connector looks like. It is the little open A icon, or the open Autodesk icon on your next to your clock. And a couple of the different statuses that you'll see is that you do have the ability to work offline. So the software is installed and working, but you are not connected to the BIM 360 environment. Now, this is important, and this is an important tool to use. So the other thing that you do is you have your green icon, which means things are processing in the background, and then you have your red icon, which means things need to be addressed inside your pending actions. And we'll take a look at that live. So one of the things that you're going to notice is that BIM 360 creates a folder structure in your user directory on your C drive. And we've had some comments already from customers that like to see this cache location for your BIM 360 environment moved, because a lot of us are leveraging very high cost solid state drives that are smaller than our traditional hard drives. So what we want to do is be able to move data to those traditional hard drives and allow the processes and programs to run on those SSDs. So we have taken that feedback, and I do believe that is something that is likely being worked on. So hey, there's a reason for our safe harbor statement. So just to continue here, what we're going to do is we're going to see how this data is processed when we move that information over to the BIM 360 environment. And one thing that I'll say is that when we're copying it over, it is important to have desktop connector connected. And then one of the recommendations I do is that you work offline. And that way it gives you the ability to copy the data over into your directory structure, have it then go back online and have BIM 360 do the synchronization. Here's just a quick screen that's going to show you that BIM 360 environment as it's running in the background for us. And we can pop it up and check the status of that, and we'll do that live. So connecting as a project user. So what's going to happen is you're going to see an invite in your email to a BIM 360 project. You need to accept that invite, otherwise things don't start processing and don't start happening for you. So you do have to go out there, you do have to have this entitlement in your manage.autodesk.com site or your accounts at Autodesk. And just to give you a quick preview of what that invite's going to look like, and I do believe we'll have that happen for us live as well. And then what you'll see is this new project is created in your Civil 3D directory or Civil 3D open screen. When you go to the 2020.2 version, you should see the BIM 360 options on that open screen. You'll go to your BIM 360 icon in a number of different ways. So you can either open it in the traditional format, navigate to your hub, and then into the project, or you can do it from that home screen like we just previously showed. And we'll probably be able to step through both of those, time limited maybe. This will show you that the actual file that we're trying to access is now being cached or transferred over to your local machine, and it is actually being locked. So another user cannot check that file out and cannot make modifications to it. They can view the file and they can make comments in the file in the BIM 360 environment. So as you're making modifications to a surface, maybe the surveyor reaches out to you and says, hey, listen, what we realize is that these 10 lines are not correct in this corner. If you go with this design, you're going to end up building a wall. So what we're going to do is we're going to make modifications, look for those updates. And so you can start to see that information and that collaboration in your BIM 360 environment. Okay, so real quick, let's show you what it looks like to open a drawing in BIM 360. Again, we're just going to go to that open screen. This is your traditional open format. We see the BIM 360 icon. Or we can go from our home screen here. And you see BIM 360 located right there. You'll see the previous files that we've worked on or the ones that are available to us in the BIM 360 environment. These are the drawings that are available to us. We're digging into the project now. We'll see that there's external references, there's individual drawings, which would contain our data references or our in-design files, such as our corridors, alignments, profiles, etc. As we're opening this file, you'll see that it's transferring. And then if we jumped over into the BIM 360 environment now, you would see that we had actually locked these files, brought the corridor drawing over, and now nobody else can get to it. We're going to be doing the work now. And as we're doing that work and as we're making those changes, you'll see that inside the environment, the data is being then saved back to BIM 360, so our other users are getting access to it. We're also keeping the versioning of those individual project files. So any changes that we make to the files, we can then go back and make corrections if we made an inappropriate change. Oop, I did not mean to close that. Pardon me. There we go. Okay, so this is what we will see inside our BIM 360. Sorry, I have another device connected. This is what we're going to see inside our BIM 360 environment inside Civil 3D. So we are connected, and as you can see here, we see the version states underneath version. So we have our history is captured for us. We see that who has locked the files and who is actually, and we see the files that you have locked and that are locally cached to your machine. We do see the same information over in BIM 360, and then as you can see here, we're walking through the process of uploading those files directly in the BIM 360 environment. Now, one thing I'll let you know, one thing that can throw you off is that you do need to have a project folder created in BIM 360 in order to start saving information up to the project. If you just have the project files structure created and no other project folders, then you will not have the ability to upload that information. One concern that some people have is that the BAK files are not copied over to the BIM 360 environment. The reason that is because we're actually storing the version changes inside BIM 360 and not needing to leverage the BAK files. There are a couple issues known with the sheet set manager. Those are being worked on currently, and the performance improvements are coming again as well. So again, glad I threw that safe harbor statement up. So right before we jump into the process here, just a quick reminder of what things are going to look like. What you're going to see is we're going to set that working folder to BIM 360 inside our data shortcuts, and then we will see those data shortcut projects that are available for us to leverage through the cloud environment. Okay, so let's jump over into Civil 3D.
While you're jumping over there, do we have a moment for a couple of questions?
Perfect timing, absolutely.
Okay, perfect. So Stacy is asking, what tool are you referring to that can help us with this migration? Reference manager, batch save utility, or both?
I would say you would probably want to leverage both of those utilities. It just depends on what we're trying to take care of. The batch save utility that we created, I believe in 2016-ish, 17, that's an awesome tool to run through some processes that need to happen to the drawings, specifically any auditing or purging a large group of drawings that can happen, say, over a weekend or when your end users are offline. So those are great tools to leverage. And then there's the data shortcuts editor if needed as well. But what I'll say is that moving your files to BIM 360, the experience that you should expect is that it'll function very much like if you were moving a Civil 3D project from one server to another. So any broken information, any broken data referencing, what we can do is we go back into there, and as we reconnect to those data references, or excuse me, to those data shortcuts, you'll start to see the project heal itself, so to speak.
Okay, great. And Stephen asked the question, what type of file clash or conflict detection does BIM 360 use for files that are edited in an offline mode?
That's a great question, Stephen. I would have to dig into that one.
Okay.
Joe might actually have some information on that.
Okay, well, we'll come back to that definitely. So Jason is asking the question, will this work with Vault?
That is actually something that I believe is in the works. Again, I'm not 100% sure on the answer to that, but I know that there are customers that are trying to leverage their Vault environment with the BIM 360 environment. And I believe some of our enterprise customers may have taken those steps as well, but I'm not 100% sure. We will follow back up with you on that and find out what information is available. That's a great question. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And if you'd like, we can keep going with your presentation and come back to a couple of these questions.
Okay. So what I'll do right now is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create us a project. I said we were jumping in Civil 3D. I got ahead of myself. I'm going to create us a project inside the BIM 360 environment. So we'll call this learning content. And because I can't resist, yes, I was 5 years old when the original Star Wars came out and remember standing in line. Let's see here. We're going to be working on, this is what we're doing here is we're walking through the process of defining our project inside BIM 360. So we're going to say that, okay, I generally work on streets, roads, and highways. What kind of construction is it? It's new. Do we want to add other information? Do we have some project imagery that we want to include just to kind of spoof up our homepage inside BIM 360? What type of contract is it? Design build? Is it something that is it construction management and at-risk project? So what you're going to see here is a lot of the information in BIM 360 is really focusing towards that end goal. And the end goal for all designers is to have that project built. Actually, I guess it's better to design the project, have us get fully compensated and not have it built because then there's no liability, but that's not a realistic expectation of the world. So the best thing is that we're focusing on this end goal, which is a successful project. I'm going to go ahead and say, create this project for us. And now I'm given the ability to start activating some of my modules inside BIM 360. And we're not going to go into detail on some of the other modules, but I'm just going to go through the process here of inviting myself, because I do have to invite myself to the project. And I like to copy this because I'm going to activate a couple other modules as well in order to save myself time. So you do have to have document management, and you do have to have design collaboration in order to use the tools that we're working on right now. And there are some other tools here at your fingertips. You have your more construction-focused tools down here with glue, field, and plan. You have some of your project management and cost management tools up here as well. We're not going to go into those right now. We're just going to go ahead and activate design and docs. So everything's good. I'm going to say finish. And now I have created my project. So what I want to do is search for that. I've got two projects, name the same thing. See, I was practicing earlier. So what you see here now is that this is my BIM 360 project. What I want to do here is turn on Insight, and that's going to give me a nice home screen to go to. And I can get some insight on my project. It's a little bit redundant there, my apologies. Here I go, I'm going to jump over into the home screen. And this is just showing me some of the basic splash screen about my project. I haven't set up my location so the weather's off quite a bit. I don't have any project issues, and we can talk a little bit about project issues as we go into the live portion of the presentation. And then design issues and things like that. These are the tools that are giving you the ability inside BIM 360 to collaborate on your projects as you're working on them. Let's go back over into my project admin, and I want to get into my folder structure. And like I said, I wanted to, wait a minute, I want to be in document, excuse me, and I want to create myself a subfolder here, and we want to start migrating the information over to BIM 360. While I'm doing that, I'm going to bring my email up and see if I've got my invite. And I do. Wonderful. Where did it go? Okay, it's behind one of my screens here. Just give me 2 seconds. There we go. So this is the invite that you will receive from BIM 360. Go ahead and select go to my project. It's going to make sure that I have the correct entitlements. I'm going to log in, and voila. I've accepted my invite. I'm now part of this project. I'm going to come over to my project folders, files, and I'm going to create some substructures here. Let's take a peek at my world now and how that looks. So in my directory structure here, I have my connected learning project. And you'll see that I've created some data inside that connected learning project, my data shortcuts, as well as some of my existing files. So what I want to do here is think about what does this look like? And this is not a very good directory structure, obviously. So what I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to come over and I'm going to create myself a folder. There we go, add a subfolder. And I want to create civil. And we'll create one for architecture. Hey, I spelled it right this time. That's why I was a civil engineer, it's easier to spell. Excellent. Okay, so what we've got here is we've got our directory structure set up. Now there's a couple different ways, like I said, that we can move things over. We can just start uploading our directory structure and allowing them to move where they should be. And that's probably the best recommendation in my opinion. If it's a very large project, like I said, you might want to leverage the tool over here inside. Let me get my folders back open, and let's show you what that looks like in BIM 360. Where is my project? There it is. Okay. And one second. Waiting for my folders to synchronize here. There we go, they finally synchronized. So you'll see over here in my BIM 360, I go into the account that I'm a member of, and then I come into my project here, and you'll see that I'm a member of a number of other projects. And then here's our project files, and you can see that that directory structure that I created are already starting to migrate to my local. So this is where I would say that you can, now one thing I'll point out to you here is that once we get, let me get some files over here and then we'll talk about what I was going to point out to you here. So this is where I'm going to come over, I'm going to open up my BIM 360, or excuse me, my desktop connector. And I'm going to show you what that looks like. So you'll just see here, and let me slide my toolbar over. That would have been way more helpful. Any questions, Michelle?
We do have a couple, actually. And we may want to come back, and this is why I kind of held off, because I know you're talking about the project's location right now, but Samar, I think it's Samar, asked the question, when the time is right, could you please elaborate on the plans folder in BIM 360? How can we publish PDF plans to the folder directly?
Okay, yes, that was not actually in my presentation, but I will definitely see if I can get to that. If not, I will get you some information on that.
I can help with that too, Sean, no worries.
Oh, perfect, thanks, Joe.
Right, and Greg is asking the question, so are we working on a network location with references to other network locations, or are we working within the BIM 360 local drive?
Great question. As you see here, if I come up here to the top, you'll notice that this is my BIM 360 drive location locally. So this is the cache location for the BIM 360 files that we're sharing. So these are not necessary, these will no longer live on your network. These will live in the BIM 360 environment when you're collaborating, you're leveraging this tool. So what we'll do here is, sorry, lost a little bit of track of thought here. Great questions, I love the interaction. And we're going to open up Civil now. One of the things we'll do is I'm going to show you where we're at in Civil as well, and then we're going to temporarily work offline and manually move the files. Like I said, you probably want to move those files in the upload location. That's probably the best experience, but I understand that sometimes we have to work outside that best experience. And so here's what you're going to see inside Civil once we get those files moved over. So I'm going to come over to my icon. I'm going to select Work Offline. And now what you should see again is that snooze or kind of hourglass. I'm going to open up my folders. I'm going to migrate to BIM 360. No, I'm not. I'm going to come up here to do it. Wait a minute. Yes, we are. And I'm going to get in my project. There we go. So all the localized files are still here. We've got Civil. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to close that down so nobody can see. I'm going to open up another folder, and I'm just going to drag and drop these files over, and let's cross our fingers and hope that this works for the second time. Generally, the first time it works, the second time, not going to happen. Connected learning. So what I'm going to do is, it's not the greatest structure here. Let's just go ahead and cross our fingers. You'll notice something's happening. I'm going to come over to my pending actions, and we're going to start seeing some files transferring, but they're not going to move yet because they're not yet moved via our connection. So we're going to have to wait for these files to copy. This might take a little longer than I hoped. Now, one of the things, let me go ahead and reconnect. Come on. My icon's missing. Something just did not happen well. Pardon me, everyone. Okay, so let's, in interest of effort here, let's go ahead and just upload these files the way we should have done in the first place. Like I said, the first time it works, second time not going to happen. I shouldn't open my mouth.
Isn't that what we call Murphy's Law?
It is, that is exactly what I would say. So here we go. Now we see that it's actually processing. I'm going to stop that process. I'm going to figure out why desktop connector is not opening right now. It's open, but it's not showing in my icon. There we go. So here we go. We see that our files are processing. They're uploading. They're not very big files, so they shouldn't take very long. Then as soon as those guys are available, we're going to be able to come over here to the BIM 360 world and see them and start leveraging them again. but I do need to make sure I'm back online with Desktop Connector. And it did crash for some reason.
So Tom makes a really great
There we
recommendation.
go. There it is. It showed back up. Yes, sir, Tom.
So Tom's recommending you might consider forcing the desktop connector icon to stay visible on the taskbar for easier access. I think that's a great recommendation. We'll definitely pass that over to the product teams.
I think we can do that inside this setting here. I actually think that's one of the settings that we have control over inside Windows. So that's actually a great recommendation. There we go. Now it's doing some stuff for us. Yay. So it's creating the multiple file folders here for me. Let me come over, look at there. We're going to start seeing in BIM 360. Oops, things in the queue. There we go. And there we go. Here we go. So these are the cached folders that are local. So it's going to start bringing these guys down. There's the folders that it's bringing down. You're starting to see that it's looking for my, there we go. All those data shortcut folders that are automatically created by Civil 3D when we leverage data shortcuts. So it's just a couple minutes here. We don't have any sample line groups found, so it's not going to bring that information over. Some other projects on there that should not be pending. Let me move this out of the way real quick. Okay, and let's refresh. There we go. So in our BIM 360 folders on our local, everything's cached. You see that, well, it's not yet cached, but it's in the process. You see that there's this version. I'm going to jump back into Civil real quick. We're going to open those files up. Hit refresh here. And voila, here's our projects. Let's go ahead and open up our sheets and let's see what happens. Crossing our fingers that our projects are going to show up for us. And look at that. We've got some data shortcuts. Is it to the correct location? It's not. Let's go ahead and get our shortcut folder set up correctly. Just repathing like we would. Like I said, if we were moving any Civil 3D project from one location to another, we're going to have to go through these processes. Come on.
Maybe while that's working, I'll ask a couple of these questions that I said we could come back to. Daniel is asking, how come a drawing preview in the list of files, whoops, it moved on me. 1 second.
Oh, I'm still waiting for the folders to be created.
Okay.
Go ahead.
It moved on me. Let me look. Oh, there we go. Okay. See, Daniel. Okay, so how come a drawing preview in the list of files is no longer available? It was a great feature that allowed me to make sure I was opening a drawing that I expected to look like.
I think he means on the home screen. I'll go back to that in just 2 seconds here.
Okay.
Waiting for my folders to synchronize. This is silly. Let me see what we have in BIM 360. Oh, that's not where I wanted to be.
Daniel's also asking the question, what version do you currently have installed? Is it 2020.3 or another released version?
It's 2020.2. So right now I am using 2020.2. I have not loaded the service pack or the beta version yet. So shoot, this is still taking a little bit longer than I had hoped. Again, remember we talked about a robust internet connection. And let's refresh this guy, see what's going on.
And Jen is making the comment, we found that if your computer crashes while using BIM 360, you have to restart the computer and reestablish the desktop connector to get BIM 360 to unlock your files.
You know, it's almost like we set that question up for us here because that's one of the things I was going to recommend is that if you are migrating data like I was trying to show you how to do, leveraging your Windows Explorer tools. If you work offline, things will work well for you. If you shut down Desktop Connector, or if Desktop Connector crashes, anything that happens inside these folders will not be replicated. They will magically disappear. It is quite frustrating, especially when you're trying to set this up on the backside to do some presentations, and then you come back into the folders that you knew you copied data over to, and the data's not there. So if you're not connected to BIM 360 in some fashion, working offline or not, you do have to make sure that you're connected, either or the product is launched. And another feedback. Thanks, Jen. I appreciate that. So she's already let us know that this is one of the challenges that they're working with. And I'm pretty frustrated, everyone, about the fact that this is taking a little bit longer than it should. Of course, this is what we get when we do it live. We try to reconnect to this working folder again.
And just so you know, we have just about 9 minutes left.
Thank you. It's not true. Oh, wait a minute. Am I? No, I'm correct. Save that real quick. So I opened that file from BIM 360. No, I didn't. I opened it locally. Okay, that's where I went south. Let's see if we can get it opened over here. Now it's transferring. There we go. Okay, and this is what I hope to see actually, is that we don't necessarily have our references connected correctly. We have the drawing open in the cloud, but we don't have those references. So let's go ahead and set those working folders now. I have a sneaky suspicion I forgot to turn something on inside BIM 360. And that's what's giving me this attitude. There we go, perfect. So now we're gonna set our new working folders. Actually, we're going to set the project working folder, but since it's not there, it's not gonna show up. Yeah, so the file hasn't processed, the file is not done moving over there yet. We're still waiting for some of those folders to be created. Let me go ahead and see what we can do about that. So everything's working better now. Sorry about that little hiccup. Probably because I got my camera on today. You have to see me. Things are taking longer than it should.
Yeah, that GoToWebinar can really hog up the bandwidth, can't it?
Okay, so
While you're helping that move along, I just want to throw this out there. Jen has offered anyone assistance that might be needing it, because she's saying at MDT, we are on a network, and we had to design a slightly different process for migrating a project to BIM 360. Our process is heavily dependent on the file structure within BIM 360, and our users do not have the permissions at the level of what Sean is showing. So she'd be happy to be a resource if anyone is interested. So thank you, Jen, for offering that up. I definitely recommend everyone going to the product forums and exchange information. I at Autodesk can't share your information with everyone unless you give me that permission. So definitely, let me know, or just go out to those forums and share with each other. That would be awesome.
And we have some more questions while I'm messing around here on trying to get myself moved over.
Yes, absolutely. So let me go up a little bit. We had one that we skipped over. Let's see, you said you'd come back to that one.
So here I actually did use that process to copy it. You'll see that I'm offline. I'm gonna go back online and things should move. Go ahead.
So I'm gonna probably pronounce this wrong. Tanja is asking, when will this be available on EU server?
That is a great question. That's one that I would highly recommend that we post into our forums to get some feedback from the development team. It's not one that I have some insight into right now, but it is a question that is being asked by a number of our customers. So you are not the only one inquiring about that availability. There we go. There's my data shortcuts folder. So as things are migrating over, you're going to start to see, okay, we're going to have to wait for the requested service to become available. You'll see the BIM 360 is doing its thing in the background. It's got some activities or some actions I need to take. Okay, let's see if we can get it to do its thing again. Save my drawing. Saving your drawing kicks the process off a lot of the times. You're gonna, oh, here we go, here's our surfaces. So you'll likely see that my surface is still there. It's not being displayed. Oh, because it's on a no display style. There you go. There's Civil 3D 101. That's why my surface isn't being displayed. I hope somebody's laughing on the call. That was wonderful. So there we go. You see that my alignment has been referenced and has been moved over. And you'll see that my surface has been moved over as well inside my sheet that I created. So just a, I mean, this is super basic, super straightforward, very, not high tech process that I just stepped us through here, but it gets you the point. Now, the other thing that I did want to show us here with about 4 minutes left was that promise about looking at this data inside BIM 360. So now that we've got stuff moved over, what do these sheets look like? Wait for them to open up. And what you're going to see here is now we have the ability for those design reviewers to start making some comments on these files and start helping the design team and the CAD drafters get their information processed in a more timely manner. Come on, open up your sheet here. Let me go back just 1 second. Let me get one that is actually, everything still seems to be loading. That is quite frustrating. Again, did I say that we needed robust internet connections?
Yeah, I wish I could say that never happened to me, Sean, on all the BIM 360 demos I've done.
And that's one of those recommendations where a lot of the times you'll hear, use videos, and it's like, well, that's not the real experience.
Yes.
Well, and Daniel, or yeah, it was Daniel that pointed out, experiencing issues live by the subject matter expert is encouraging for the participants. And Sean has the influence to improve the functionality. Also, it provides an opportunity to learn troubleshooting steps within the software. So thank you, Daniel, for being so supportive of that. Thank you.
Wow, it's almost like we're paying him for that. That was wonderful, Daniel. that was like the best comment I've received in a long time. Thank you so much. I'm going to jump over into an area that I know is functioning correctly here real quick and show you what I was working on. Let's see here. There's my world. We only have about 2 minutes left. I really wanted to get into these folders and show you some of the availability that we have. Okay, this is going to load for me, right? Because it's already up there. Okay, so what this is, you might have saw this file previously. What these are is points that I set on imagery from an aerial that was brought into Civil 3D. We did a presentation a few months ago about using style rules to make sure that our objects in InfraWorks were brought over correctly. And so, one of the things that we have the availability to do here is start making comments on these drawings. So we could say in this area, text, are cars really this close? And so this is your, this is your design reviewer that's just commenting on your model, right? They've basically taken the drawing that you used, and what you can say, so what they'll do here is they'll save the markup. And then once we get the markup saved, we can come over to our markups and we can decide whether they're public or private. We want to make it published. And then we can have users come back and address these markups, so we can assign this to individuals and they can come back and actually give us feedback and say, yes, absolutely, this is the parking lot for rental cars. So they're parked absolutely as close as they can possibly get. As you notice over here, the cars are spaced out a little better. So that's the feedback that you're giving. Now, the advantage here is that the person giving the feedback to the designer only has to be invited to the BIM 360 environment. They do not have to have any of the Civil or InfraWorks tools loaded on their desktop. So it really expands your availability to have your workforce giving you comments sooner in your design processes. I'm glad we got one open there. Sorry about the little hiccup.
So we are at the top of the hour. I know there are a few questions that we weren't able to get to. So what we'll do is we will address these in a blog post after the fact, and that link to that blog post will come to you along with the recording of this webinar. So thank you everyone for joining, and Sean and Joe, thank you so much for presenting and making yourselves available to everyone to answer some questions.
Well, and thanks to everybody who participated in the conversation today. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. Let's keep the dialogue going. Definitely go out to the product forums and keep that dialogue going. Help each other. You know, Jen was definitely very generous to offer her assistance. So I recommend you go out to those forums and connect with Jen. It's Jen Jewett is her last name from MDT. So thank you, everyone, and we will see you next month at our next meetup.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great week. Bye now.
Bye.